Hello my schoolers, you're welcome to my school YouTube channel. My name is Emmanuel and today's video we'll be looking at JAMB past question for biology year 2000. Please don't go anywhere, stick around and we'll be right back. You're welcome back to my school YouTube channel. Like I said earlier on, today we'll be considering JAMB past questions in biology year 2000, and today we'll be looking at question 26 to question 50. So let's go down to question 26 now. The fruit represented is mainly dispersed by, first you need to identify what fruit is this. This is a cross-sectional area of a coconut fruit, okay? And then we know that the characteristics of this kind of fruit, because when we talk about the method or ways of dispersal of fruits, there are characteristics that will enable that fruit to be dispersed by the agent. Okay, the agents that can disperse fruits could be animals, can disperse water, can be there, wind can be there, and birds. Okay, those ones that that are dispersed by birds, definitely you know that those fruits are light weighted, they don't have weight. Okay, with the aid of their beaks they can be able to pick them and carry them and transfer them from one place to the other. Okay, breeze can easily take them. The one for the wind also will be light weighted, there will be no weight. Okay, and then those ones will be easily carried, can be easily carried by breeze because of the less weight that they have, the density. Talking about water can disperse any fruit if it has, of course, weight, especially if it has to do with an object that cannot be easily moved by animal. Like for this one now, that are animals, those ones like bats for instance can take mangoes, they'll be able to, because of the sweetness of the fruit, it can attract animals and even birds to them. But because of this, you can look at this fruit, this coconut fruit now has in it now, yes, it might look heavy, it might look bulky, but because of the cavity that it has in it, it tends to float on water. So water can easily disperse it, can easily move it from one place to another. So based on that, the fruit that is represented, that this coconut fruit now is mainly dispersed, not by animals because it will be too heavy for animals to lift, not by wind, because it will be too heavy for wind to just blow it, and the birds because it does not really have nectars that you have in the flowers and the likes. But water, is majorly the method of dispersal of this fruit. So option B is the correct answer, water. Now let's move on to question number 27. In an experiment to estimate the volume of air in a soil sample using a measuring cylinder, it was found that the initial volume of water was represented with P centimeter cube. The volume of soil before mixing with water was with Q cm cube. The final volume of water after adding soil was R cm cube. From the data above, which of the following deductions is correct? First, you must understand that we can find air in water, we can find air in soil, we can even find water in the soil because of the moisture content. So there are different substances you can find in the soil, but for this experiment I want to actually carry out to estimate the volume of air that we have present in the soil. Now we were given that the initial volume of water that was found was P centimeter cube, then the volume of soil before mixing with water was Q. Don't forget, before mixing with water, air was still present in it, because once you add water and you mix, what happens? The air that is in the soil will do what? We escape out. So the volume of that, because we were told that the final volume of water after adding soil, was R cm cube. So that means after you've added soil, this one now we still have air present here, but in this now there's no more air because you have added water and then you have mixed it with the soil, and then the air, you will see the bubble coming out from it. So which means that the addition of this volume of water and the volume of the soil added up together should not be, of course, greater than this. That means it should be lesser than than this, because this one, water had been added into this soil already, okay? So we have R here, this should be less than that. So in other words, what we are saying is that the addition of this P and this Q together, the value should be greater than this, because we still have air present in this, okay? Air is in this soil, and then for this one, once you added this with the water into this, you stir it, air will be escaped. We want to calculate the volume of air. So the value of water, let's say 20 for instance, and this one, let's say it is 30. So 20 plus 30 should be 50. So this value should actually be greater than the value here, because air is no longer, even though the water and we have, this is the mixture now, okay, but the air has escaped. So the volume of air would have escaped. So to get this, now the deduction is that addition of P and Q should be greater than R. In other words, the addition of P and Q should be less than what? Than R. So which means R should be, because R has no air present, by the time you mix it together, the air is no more. So which means R should be lesser, okay? The value of R should be lesser than the addition of P plus Q. Are we together? So now let's look at the option. The first option says R is equal to P plus Q. No, it cannot be this, because if it is this, you are saying that there's no air that is present in the soil, because this is for the mixture, okay? So this is the mixture, and then this one is before it was mixed together, both the air and the soil were mixed together, okay? So it should be, this one, you are saying they are equal. It is not, they cannot be equal. This must be greater than this. In other words, this must be lesser than this. Now, R is greater than P plus Q. If R, that's the weight or the volume of the mixture, here is saying that of the mixture is greater than when the air was still present inside the soil and then the water. No, it cannot be, okay? For this, we have Q equals to R minus P. Of course, Q equals to R minus P is the same as this, okay? Of course, if you move this, let's say you move this minus P to this side now, because P plus Q equals to R, which is also the same thing as this. So nothing has changed. It was only moved this other way and this one here. So this and this are the same, okay? But option D, R, that's the volume of the mixture, is actually lesser than the addition of what? The water and then the soil, okay? When added together. Because air is no longer in this point. We want to determine the volume of air. So based on that now, the correct answer is option D. R is less than the addition of what? P plus Q. Question 28. An ecological succession often leads to what? First, what is an ecological succession? It has to do with a kind of development, okay, that takes place in species, diversity of species, okay, when there is a disaster that has taken place in a community. For instance, if there is earthquake, okay, or we say there is a flooding in an environment, what happens if there's flooding? The water will sweep away and then wash away. A lot of organisms will be taken away, and then the flood will still bring a new set of organisms to that environment. So you can have scorpion, you can have ants, you can have snake, you can have fishes, you can have in that place. So there's going to be diversity of different species in that particular community, okay? So ecological succession often leads to what? An increase in species diversity. Yes, because we have different organisms that will be in that community or in that environment. A decrease in species diversity, there can be a decrease because it's like the community is starting afresh, okay? The environment is starting afresh, so you will see different organisms newly in that particular place, okay? An unstable community, of course, the community will eventually become stable because you will have plants growing up, you will have grasshopper that can feed on the grass, then the food chain also, can increase, and the food web, okay? And then the dispersal of species, that will not happen. So an ecological succession often leads to an increase in species diversity because of the new environment that has been, because of the disaster that took place in that environment. So the correct answer is option A, an increase in species diversity. Question number 29. Atmospheric nitrogen is converted to soil nitrogen for plant use by... Now you must understand that even though air is a mixture of gases, okay, we have nitrogen having a larger percentage, about 78% of nitrogen makes up the atmospheric air, okay? But the way it is, it cannot be used by plants. So it will require a process that will convert that nitrogen into a form where the microorganism or plants or animals can actually make use of the nitrogen for their biological processes, okay? And the process through which that is taking place, or that is possible, is what we call nitrogen fixation, okay? Nitrogen fixation is a process that converts nitrogen in the atmosphere into the forms where plants can now use them. And during nitrogen fixation, several events happen, okay? There are events that bring about nitrogen fixation. We talk about lightning. Lightning is a process, is one of the processes that are involved in conversion of nitrogen to forms which plants can use them, okay? Then we also talk about nitrification is another process, okay? Because nitrification has to do with conversion, okay, of nitrogen. We talk about conversion of nitrogen. When we say conversion of nitrogen, majorly conversion of ammonia, okay, into forms, maybe nitrates, okay, nitrates that plants can actually use, okay. Those are the points. So if you understand what nitrogen fixation is, I think this question is solved already, okay. Now we have option A says that nitrification and combustion. Yes, nitrification is a process that converts ammonia, okay, into nitrates that plants eventually use them. This is correct, okay. But combustion, no, combustion has to do with a bioprocess where heat is released, okay, into the environment. This will not help in converting nitrogen, okay, into the form that plants will. So because of this option is not correct. Option B, putrefaction. Putrefaction and lightning. Of course, lightning, I mentioned before, is one of the processes that leads to nitrogen fixation, okay. But putrefaction is not. Putrefaction is a breakdown process, biological process that takes place in the organism, in the environment, okay, but it does not convert nitrogen into forms that are useful by plants. So this option B is also not the answer. Option C says lightning and nitrification. I already explained that nitrification, okay, and lightning are actually processes that aid nitrogen fixation, that aid the conversion of atmospheric nitrogen into form that plants will use them. We talk about D again, combustion and putrefaction. Of course, this combustion is not correct because it just has to do with conversion, a breakdown process that leads to release of heat into the community and environment, and putrefaction also is not. So, atmospheric nitrogen is converted to soil nitrogen for plant use by nitrogen fixation, which is possible by what? Lightning and nitrification. So, based on that, option C is the correct answer, lightning and nitrification. Question number 30. Roman figure 1 says high birth rate and high immigration rate. 2, low birth rate and high immigration rate. 3, low mortality rate and low immigration. 4, high mortality rate and high immigration rate. Which combination of the above can cause rapid overcrowding in climate, biotic, communities and human settlements? We're talking about, when we talk about overcrowding, we talk about overpopulation, okay? Economics we refer to this as overpopulation. When the total number of, organisms or people that are living in an environment, okay, is actually more than the available resources in that environment, we say it is overcrowded. So among this, which combination of this would lead to what? Overcrowding in a climate biotic. When we say climate biotic communities, we are talking about a community that is already stable, okay, that has reached climate that is stable because of the diversity of organisms that we have there. So before we look at any of this one, whatever that is going to lead to overpopulation or overcrowding in a country or in a community definitely has to do with you have more people coming into that country. I'm just taking it from the perspective of economics now. More people coming into the community or into the environment or into the country, okay, and that is what? Immigration. Many people coming in, and then you discover that people that are, that they are giving birth to, children that are giving birth to, there will be increase. That's why we talk about China having the highest population all over the world, okay? And then we talk about also the death rate. So let's look at option 1 says high birth rate and high immigration rate. Will this one add to the population of that community? High birth rate, okay? Yes, if the adults, organisms give birth to more, young ones, we have them increasing on the high rate, and then we have more organisms coming into the community. Of course, definitely, this is going to add up to total number of organisms that are in that community. So this definitely is going to add up and cause a rapid overcrowding. So let's take note of that. Roman figure I says low birth rate and high immigration rate. When we say low birth rate, maybe we have the adults not giving birth too much, and then you just have that. Of course, this is not going to contribute to the rapid overcrowding. And then we talk about high immigration rate, the rate at which people are coming in, or organisms are moving into that community, even though it is increased. But because the low birth rate, okay, this will not be correct. Okay, this is correct. This will add up high immigration rate, but this nullifies this from being qualified to be picked. So, but this one already is correct. I says low mortality rate and low immigration. When we talk about mortality, it has to do with death rate. Okay, how many people are dying? If we have low people or low organisms that survive, okay, we talk about death rate being reduced. Okay, if we have death rate being reduced, definitely that means we are going to have more population in that community. Okay, that's what happens. So low mortality rate definitely is going to add up to rapid overcrowding in the climates, biotic community. And then we talk about low emigration. Emigration has to do with the number of people that are going out, organisms that are leaving that community. Okay, so if people that are leaving, we have just few or less, or the organisms that are leaving that place is less, definitely that is going to increase the population of that community. So which means that this also will cause rapid overcrowding in climates, biotic communities. And then the last one is IV. IV is high mortality rate and high emigration rate. Of course, high mortality rate, if the number of organisms that are dying, okay, is on the increase, definitely the number of organisms in that place definitely is going to reduce. So that will not cause a rapid overcrowding. Okay, then this one, high immigration rate, the number of people that are going out increases, that is not going to help or cause a rapid overcrowding in climate. So out of all of these options now, this I, Roman figure I, and Roman figure I 3 actually stands out to cause a rapid high birth rate and high immigration rate, correct? Then low mortality death rate, okay, and low immigration rate, number of that are going organisms that are leaving the community is that. So which means that I and I are the only one that are correct. So let's look up for option A. Option A says we have I and I. Yes, I is correct, but I is not, so which means option A is not the right answer. Option B, we have I and I. This and then this one. Yes, this is correct. Let's look at option C. Is I and IV. This and then IV, high mortality rate. No, this is correct, but this is not. Then I and I, this is correct, but this is not. So this is null. So based on these factors now, the correct answer here is option B, I and I. Question 31. This is a curve showing the plant growth rate and then the soil essential element concentration. Okay, how the soil tends to improve the growth of plants. Okay, this curve looks like the growth curve, okay, for organism also. Okay, it's also applicable. And then in that, what happens is that this first point now, this is Roman figure I, is actually what we call the log phase, L-O-G, log phase. Okay, that is the phase where the organism is just beginning to get nutrients that is going to what, to grow up. That's the plant growth now. Okay, and then from this point now, you see that it keeps moving up now. Then we have this point now. This point is what we call the lag phase. Lag. Here is log phase. Here is lag phase. Lag phase is the growth phase. Okay, that's the phase where the organism begin to increase in number because they have made use of the nutrients here. The plants have made use, and then they have started experiencing growth. Okay, at this point I. Then this point I, you discover that this place looks kind of uniform. Okay, it's just going. That's the point we call the stationary phase. Okay, that stationary phase, the growth is just stagnant. It is static. It has no movement in that point. And then because they are growing older, here, and then there's no significant change again. It happens in humans to get to a point where the cells are no longer growing. There's no growth that is experiencing. Okay, depreciation begins to go up, and then you say the person is old. It happens in plants. And then at this last point now, which is IV, this phase is what we call the death phase. The death phase, the organism eventually begins to what? To die off completely. So the question says, the soil becomes toxic to plants when the concentration of its essential elements is in the range labeled what? Is the IV, is the I, and I. We said that this point is the lag phase where nutrients is coming up. building up. Then this II is what? The log phase where growth is being experienced. At this point, there's stationary here because there's no growth again taking place. And then this place is the dead phase. Where do you think the soil is going to become toxic to plants? It is when the plant begins to die. And that is the stage where the plant, because when they begin to plant, it becomes what? Toxic to them, that they can no longer, survive in that environment again. And that is this point now, which is the point, which is IV. So the option here is IV. Option A is the correct answer here. Question 32. This curve is just the same one we saw in the previous question, which is question 31. Okay. Now, I explained already that Roman figure I is the log phase. Okay, that's where the nutrients actually are, being gathered together in the soil. Okay, and then the plants are just trying to get the nourishment, the nutrient that we have there, so that they can grow. And then that's where we have the second part here, which is II. That is the lag phase. Okay, which is the growth. That's where the growth actually takes place. The plant begins to grow because you can see it moving up. Okay, begins to grow. That's the plants go there, begin to grow, and then they make use of the nutrients that are present in the soil and they grow until the point where there's no significant, change, permanent change anymore. Okay, so that's why we have this point, which is III. That's the stationary phase. Okay, our static phase, stagnant, and then eventually at this point, the nutrients in the soil become toxic to the plant and they can't make use of it again. Okay, by the addition, and then they begin to die off eventually. So this is the death phase, actually IV. So the question says the range at which soil essential elements concentration is recorded for optimal plant growth is marked what? Based on that, it is this point where we have the soil essential elements concentration recorded for optimal. That is the highest point, okay, where plant growth actually takes place. This point, and which is II. So which means II is option C. Okay, so which means the correct answer here is II. Question number 33 now. Which of the following growth activities in plants is brought about by gibberellins? Which of the following growth activities in plants is brought about by gibberellins? Okay, these are some of the activities that take place in the plants, in the growth of plants. We talk about rapid cell division. Okay, don't forget we are talking about what? Gibberellin. Gibberellin is an hormone. It's a plant hormone that helps in building up the cell of the plant. Now let's take the first option. The first option says rapid cell division. No. Rapid cell division is brought about by cytokinins. Okay, it's also an hormone that helps to cause the cell division in plants to be rapid. Okay, it is cytokinins, that's the hormone that is responsible for this, not gibberellins. Then B says tropic response. Tropic response is brought about by auxins. Okay, auxin is another hormone, okay, that helps to promote growth in plants. How does it do that? It does that by altering the activities of the plant by making it growing taller so that it begins to bend, towards where light is. We call that phototropism. Okay, when the leaf, for instance, you plant a leaf and then you cover it up and then you open a part of the container that you can have light coming into, you discover that as the seedling or the plant is growing up, when there's no, it begins to what? Tend towards the position where light is coming from and it begins to bend. Okay, it is the auxins that are actually responsible for that. Option C says cell elongation. Yes, cell elongation is brought about by gibberellins. Gibberellins, how does it do that? First, it will alter some rheological properties of the cell wall. Okay, once it alters that, what happens? It will now ensure that the potential, the water potential of the cell, okay, actually begins to reduce. Okay, it will lower it. So once it lowers it, the plant actually wants more water. Okay, so it needs more water so that it can increase the volume, okay, the water volume that is present in the cell. So by doing that, the cell begins to elongate. Okay, so it's the gibberellins actually that is responsible for cell elongation, and then the main cell elongation is not the work of the gibberellins. So all the hormones that we have in plants, just like we have them in animals also, they have their different functions which they perform. So for the sake of this question now, the correct answer for this, say which of the following growth activities in plants is brought about by gibberellins? The correct answer is cell elongation, which is option C, cell elongation. Question number 34. Which of the following are adaptations of animals to aquatic habitat, adaptations of animals for aquatic. When we talk about adaptations, there are some situations or there are some conditions that might be present in the water, okay, because we're talking about aquatic habitats, that make the environment not suitable, okay, for those of them, but they are able to adapt, okay, adapt in that situation. It happens even in other animals. There might be challenges, but despite that, they will still be there. They will adapt to that kind of situation. So which of the following are adaptations of animals to aquatic? Please bear in mind adaptation of animals, okay, in aquatic. This option A says gills, streamlined bodies and lateral lines. Gills, streamlined bodies and lateral lines. Okay, gills actually help in the respiratory system because it's the respiratory organ of the fishes or those organisms that we have in the water. And what they do is they try to regulate the oxygen that is taken in by the fishes. Okay, don't forget we have dissolved oxygen present in the water. Okay, and if that is not there, okay, that is going to cause, like we talk about oil spillage, that hinders the dissolved oxygen that we are present, because animals in the water, they need oxygen to do what? To survive. Okay, so the gills actually help them to survive that, because without that they cannot adapt. So they use this in adaptation, okay, for what? For breathing, respiration. Streamlined bodies, actually you have them on some fishes. It helps them to what? To swim properly. Okay, they can be able to navigate their way, helps them in movement. Maybe there is a danger, there is an organism, there is a predator that is coming. They can be able to what? To meander, and then they find their way because of the streamlined bodies that they have. Okay, we have tilapia fish. It's one of the organisms that have that streamlined body. And then we talk about lateral lines. Lateral lines are networks of sensory organs, okay, that help fishes to sense vibrations in the water. They sense pressure, okay, in the water, okay, that is present there. So this is actually used for adaptation. The three of them, as we said, we have explained what the three of them do actually in this. Then option B, we have lateral lines. Yes, like we said, helps the fish to sense vibrations and pressure in the water, pressure change and then movement in the water. That is adaptive for aquatic organism. Then streamlined bodies, we also explained that. And then lungs here makes this not to be correct, because lungs is actually adaptive for organisms that live on land. Okay, so it can be helpful in a transition from aquatic organism, organisms that live in water to the land. Okay, so lungs, that's why we talk about the frogs, okay, having that. So but this for adaptation in aquatic habitat, it is not. So option B is not correct. Option C, we have gills. Yes, we talk about that for respiration. We have scaly skin. Yes, and lungs. Again, lungs also disqualifies this option C. Option D, we have gills, we have streamlined bodies, and then we have spiracles. This is correct. This is correct. But these spiracles are actually common in insects. Okay, insects that live on land. Okay, so this is not also adaptive for aquatic organisms. Okay, so which means that the correct answer here now is option A, gills, streamlined bodies, and lateral lines. They are used for adaptations for animals that live in the aquatic habitat. So the correct answer is option A. Do you know you can take practice questions with our simulated JAMB CBT past questions? All you need to do is to click on the link in the description below that takes you to the Myschool website, where you'll be able to download the Myschool mobile app on your Androids and then Myschool software on your laptops and computers. Please go ahead and start practicing. Now let's move on to question number 35. Which of the following is an adaptation of tropical rainforest species? Adaptation of tropical rainforest species. We have option A, we have fused stomata, we have thick bark, we have buttressed roots, and then reduced leaves. You see, reduced leaves are actually features of plants, okay, or species that actually in an environment where we have limited supply of water, okay, and that is in the desert. Okay, desert, we have trees there that have reduced leaves on them because they have to conserve the water they have. Also, we have thick barks. Okay, thick barks are always for trees or species that are actually in the desert place, because they need to what? To conserve the little water they have, content they have in them. And then fused stomata also, of course, stomata we have them in the leaf, so we have them few because of the what? Little amount or availability of water present in them. Okay, so buttress roots actually are for tropical rainforest what species. Okay, so if we have few stomata, we have thick bark, we have reduced leaves. These are features of plants or species that are in the desert, okay, place. But for tropical rainforest area, we'll be talking about those type of plants or species that are buttress point. Their roots are always buttress because they have no large amount of water that are present in that particular environment. So they will be able to buttress. You see, they have moisture present and water and other nutrients present in those leaves. So the correct answer is option C, buttress roots. I hope you enjoyed this content. If yes, please don't forget to click on the like button, hit on the subscribe button, and finally tap the notification bell to keep you notified once we upload the next video. Question 36. In a food chain, each succeeding level in a forward direction represents what? Don't forget that in a food chain, we have different levels of organisms. Okay, it tells us how energy is being what? Is being transferred, okay, from one level to the other. And then you know that the first level usually we have the primary producers. Most cases they are autotrophs that manufacture their food themselves. Okay, they don't need to depend on other organisms. So from sunlight, they make use of carbon dioxide and then water to produce their food. Okay, at that point, the energy level there is actually more. Okay, so and it begins to what? To reduce as the herbivore feeds on them, and then like that, and then it keeps moving on. So the energy begins to what? To decrease as they move on the food chain. Because of that, the number of individuals, number of organisms that are present there begin to what? Decrease gradually, begin to decrease gradually. So with that, we can say that in a food chain, each succeeding level in a forward direction represents an increase in the number of individuals. No, because there is level of energy. Energy is being what? Dissipated gradually, and then there will be reduction. So the number of individuals cannot increase, rather it will decrease. Option B, a decrease in the number of individuals. Yes, a decrease in number. Option C says an increase in the biomass of individuals. No, the biomass, talking about the mass of the organisms that are living there, definitely will not increase, rather it will be decreasing. Okay, and then we talk about the gain in the total energy being transferred. There has to be, when the energy is being given up, there will be loss, okay, of what? Of total energy, okay, that is being what? Transferred from what is. So it is not gaining because energy is being given off, okay, directly by to another organism, takes in, and then there's transfer. So the energy is not going to be gaining, instead rather it will be lost from the level because we are moving what? In the forward direction. So the correct answer here is option B, which is a decrease in the number of individuals. Number of individuals that are actually in that food chain will be decreasing. So the correct answer is option B. Question number 37. The disaster that would have the least destructive impact on animal life and balance in nature is the least. Don't forget, the least destructive. So which means all of them are actually destructive and they have high impact on animal life, okay, and then the balance in nature, but the least among them. So we have chemical pollution. Of course, this is at a very high impact, okay, on animal life. Okay, chemical pollution, where the pollution, there's pollution, chemicals are being dissipated or are being released into the environment, okay, and chemicals, what impact chemical will definitely have on animals that are living in that community. We talk about forest fires. This destroys many animals that are in the forest, okay, so this has high impact. We talk of oil spillage. Yes, oil spillage. Yes, once there's oil spillage, we know what happens. Plants, okay, begin to die off. Then the water also that are around there in the level begins to get contaminated. And once it get contaminated, the organisms that are living in the soil where we have water present there are definitely going to have a great impact on them. And then we talk about grasshopper pest. Grasshopper pests also have impact on animal life, but that should be the least because the impact is going to have on animal, the life of animals is not as intense as this one. So the correct answer here is option D, grasshopper pests. Question number 38. The legs and beak of an egret resemble those of the heron because they what? First of all, the legs and the beaks, what are they used for? They are adaptive features that helps them in dictating their feeding behaviors, as well as helping them in their ecological niche. Okay, so the beak and the legs actually help them to adapt for their ability to feed, because they are, both of them are wading birds actually. Okay, they have long legs because they feed on fishes that are on shallow waters. Okay, so that legs help them to stand tall, because though they have a long leg, because they have access to water that is shallow. Okay, so that helps them to have a similar ecological niche, and then to help them in their feeding behavior. Let's look at option A. Says both feeds on fishes. Of course, both of them feed on fishes, but that is not elaborate, that is not comprehensive enough. We have both of them are birds. Of course, both of them are birds. Option C says they occupy similar niche. Yes, both of them, because that help them to be able to what? To stand on as wading birds, to stand on shallow waters, and then they feed on fishes and other. Option D says they occupy the same trophic level. Yes, because they actually have space they occupy in the food chain. We talk about the food web. We talk about them being secondary consumers or tertiary consumers, depending on the position, the role they are playing in that food chain. All of them actually they are correct, but we are looking at the one that is more comprehensive. Okay, so they occupy similar niche. That is more because the legs and the beak of the egret and the heron actually are adaptive features for them to have that ecological niche and then to dictate their feeding behavior. So the correct answer here is option C, occupy similar niche. Question 39. The factors that determine the distribution of vegetation zones are, first of all, with different types of vegetation zones we have. We talk of the rainforest zones, we talk about the desert, we talk about the grassland, okay, and so on and so forth. So what factors actually determine the way species that are in that vegetation, that determines the classification of vegetations into their different zones? That we say we have rainforest, that we say we have grassland, and so on and so forth. Usually the factors that determines that, of course, has to do with climatic conditions. When we take climatic conditions, we talk about the temperature of that environment. Okay, we talk about the rainfall. Okay, we talk about the humidity. Those are part of the factors that can determine the kind of trees you see in the rainforest zone, the one you see in the desert, and so on and so forth. We'll be talking about the biotic factors, okay, like the kind of organisms that live around there, living things that live around there. In other words, we talk about biotic and abiotic factors. So we talk about wind. Wind is another one, okay, that is another climatic factor that can help. So let's look at the options we have. The option A says we have temperature. Yes, temperature, whether it is high or low, that will determine the kind of vegetations that we can have in that place. Light is another factor, like sunlight for carrying out photosynthesis. Okay, we talk about rain. Of course, rain affects and can tell us. That's why we can be able to differentiate between desert and rainforest. Okay, desert, we have little or no quantity of amount of water present in that place, so it will affect the vegetation that actually grows there. We have humidity also tends to affect that. So option A, temperature, yes. Light, sunlight, that's like sunlight, we have rain and humidity. These actually affect. Let's look at option B. Light, yes, like sunlight, humidity, yes, that's correct. Air and mist. The air actually does not work. If what we had was actually wind, okay, wind would have actually been more presentable, not the air. And then we have mist. Mist also is not a factor that we can reckon with that makes this to happen. So light correct, humidity correct, air, maybe wind would have been better, and then mist not. Option C, so option B is not correct. Option C, temperature, yes, the light, the sunlight, air, and then humidity. Okay, this A and B, A and C, you can see that similar. You have rain here and then you have air here. That's the difference we have there. So that makes this air makes this not correct. So it could have been, if it had been wind, okay, we would have gone with that, because wind is a climatic factor actually that helps to. Then option D, we have humidity, yes, snow, frost, and dew. So this one do not actually contribute to the climatic factors. So the correct answer here is option A: temperature, sunlight, rain, and humidity. Question 40. A cross between an albino female and a genetically normal male will result in offspring that are, so if we have a female that is an albino married to a normal male, when we say male, the color, the complexion is just normal, not an albino, okay, what kind of offspring, children, will they give birth to? We can actually determine that. Option A says we have all of them, all the children they will give birth to will be albino. Option B says all phenotypically normal, all of them will be phenotypically normal, all of them will be genetically normal, and then half albino and half normal. Okay, let's go to the board and let's see what to do with the drawing. So first we have let P gamete, we are talking about the parent gamete, okay? Parent gamete, let AA actually represent albino, that's the albino female, and then small letter A, let it represent the normal man, okay? So now in the these are the gametes now from this and this. So if we have the parent generation, first we have let's take A, that's the first, and then we have this one also, okay? We just group them into them. We have this A and A here. Group. So by the time we cross them for the parent gamete. Okay, we have the gamete already. Okay, so for the first filial generation, F, we have this one. We have the crossing. This crosses here, and then we have A here, and then small a here, okay? Then this, we also cross to this. This, we also cross to this, so that we have A here and the small a here, okay? So let's move over to this side now. So this, we cross to this side, so you still have A here and A here. Then the last one, this one also crosses to this side, and then we have A here, small a, capital A, and small a. Okay, so what we'll do now is that we are going to pick one of these, each of these, and then one from this side, since they are all the same. So we'll have A here and small a. Okay, we want to cross them together with A here and A. So we have to do what? To split the two of them first. We have A here on its own, and this one also on its. Then we cross it together with A here on this, and then this A on this. So for the F2 generation, so these are the gametes now that we have for the parent gamete for this second one. So we have this crossing to this. This is what? This is capital A and capital A. Okay. Then we have this crossing to this. We have capital A, of course. The A is capital, so we write that first, and then the small a. Yeah. Then we are moving now. This now crosses to this side. We still have capital letter A and capital A. And then the last one, this and this actually comes here. So we have small letter A and small letter A. So when we talk about, there are two ratios we talk about. We have the phenotypic ratio and the genotypic ratio. Okay? Look at it. Let's start with the phenotypic ratio now. It has to do with the phenotype. Okay? Phenotypic ratio now. And then we talk about the genotype. That is the genotypic ratio. The features that they have, characteristics that they have that actually have. Now, phenotypic ratio is looking at how many of this offspring, now because these are the offsprings that they're going to have eventually. Okay, so how many of this offspring now actually will be albino? So we have the part that is dominant, the one that is recessive. The dominant trait is the one that can be seen. Oh, the father has given and the mother has given birth to a child, and then everybody can say, oh, this is an albino. Oh, so that is the dominant. That it is an albino does not mean that the child still does not have a trait of being a normal. That's why it's covered that albino can get married and to somebody later on, and then gives birth to a child that is normal, okay, because he or she also has that gene that is not fully expressed. We call it recessive allele or trait that is silent, okay, but the one that is expressed, the one we see is an albino. So how many of them has that albino? That has to do with what? The phenotypic ratio that has. So we look at capital letter A. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3. There's no capital letter A here, so which means we have ratio 3 that is having what? Albino. This child will be albino, this will be albino, this will be albino, okay, but this one does not have any capital, so this one will be normal. So the phenotypic ratio is that we have 3 albino and then we have 1 that is what? That is having the normal. But for the genotypic ratio, how many will be albino fully dominant? We have here 1 here, we have here another one here, that is ratio 2 here, okay. Then we look at it again, how many of them will not be? We have some trait that is not albino. We have just one of that, okay. It has both albino and then the other one that is not albino in it, that is ratio 1, and then 2 ratio. How many of them will be normal? Just this does not have anyone at that. So if it is the genotypic ratio, it would have been ratio 2:1:1, okay. But the question says that the cross between an albino female and a genetically normal male will result in offspring data. So if you now go towards when we talk about the offspring now, what is going to happen in the phenotypic ratio? That is what we are looking at, the phenotype that they're going to have. What kind of offspring will they have eventually at that? So that is, we are considering this phenotypic ratio eventually. So which is having to do with the phenotype, okay, the traits that we can see in the children that is dominant. So which means that if an albino actually gets married to a normal, male, okay, that is having that, they are going to have 3 albino and then we have 1 normal child. So that is ratio 3:1. So let's go back to the screen now to see what we have here. Option A says all albino. That is not true because we have 1 normal that is there. All phenotypically normal. Yes, all phenotypically, because we have it is ratio 3:1. They have phenotype, okay, that they are what? They are normal. We don't have anyone that is very. Look at 3. Option C say all genetically normal. There are 3 of them. 4 of them are not genetically normal. Okay, they are not genetically normal. They are not all. We have some of them. But that's why we have ratio 2:1:1. Then we have half albino and half normal. If it is, we had ratio 2:2. Okay, among the 4 children, we would have said, okay, there is 2, we have, it is ratio 2:2, that means half albino, and then we have half normal. So this is not correct, this is not correct, this is not correct. What we have correct is what? Option B, all phenotypically normal, option B. Question 41. The pollutants that contribute to the depletion of the ozone layer in the atmosphere are radioactive materials, oxides of sulfur, oxides of carbon, chlorofluorocarbons. That's what we call the CFC, okay? Now, pollutants, of course, they are all pollutants, okay? But the one that contributes to the depletion of the ozone layer, that makes it deplete gradually, okay? Not the radioactive materials, because the radioactive material will evolve eventually, but will not deplete the ozone layer, because anything that will deplete the ozone layer has to attack the oxygen, because oxygen O3 is actually the ozone O3, okay? So we have to react with oxygen, okay, before it can begin to deplete it. But because these radioactive materials will not react with the oxygen as much as, of course, we have oxides of sulfur like we have SO2. They can actually react with water to form acid rain, okay, but that does not deplete the ozone layer. Oxides of carbon also, we can have carbon monoxide in the air, we can have carbon dioxide in the air, but those will react with oxygen. They can form acid rain, but they will not, or what's called acid anhydrides in chemistry, but it will not, those ones will not actually deplete the ozone layer. But chlorofluorocarbons, yes, because of the presence of this chlorine. Chlorine is a strong radical, okay, powerful radicals that once it is released into the atmosphere, it will react with the oxygen, okay, molecule that is present in the ozone, and then begins to deplete the ozone layer gradually. So because of that, the correct answer is option D, chlorofluorocarbons. Chlorofluorocarbons actually is the pollutant that contributes to the depletion of the ozone layer in the atmosphere. Option D is the correct answer. Question 42. The surest way to combine the best qualities of both parents in the offspring is by what? Of course, qualities of both parents. We have crossbreeding. Crossbreeding has to do with, bringing different varieties. Okay, different varieties of maybe plant or animal, depending on what we are looking at. Different varieties, you bring them together, and then when you bring this particular organism, of course, of the same species. Okay, maybe human and then a male and female, you have this trait in this man, and then you have a different trait from a woman. Okay, and then you crossbreed. Okay, can you have the qualities of both parents present? That's what the question is saying. That's crossbreeding. If it is inbreeding, you bring the same species together. Okay, this species has these features, this other species has the same feature that this one has. Okay, if you breed them together, will it give us the qualities of both parents? Option C, selective breeding. Humans or scientists can choose. Okay, I choose this animal with this animal to be able to cook. Even if I don't know the traits, I don't know the characteristics of them, let me just choose this one and choose. Will that give us, is it a sure way of getting qualities of both parents? And then D, pure breeding. Pure breeding, they are the same species. Okay, you bring them together to form. Will that give us the surest way? Of course, among these options now, the surest way to combine the best qualities of both parents in the offspring is by crossbreeding, because the traits you have in these parents and the different one you have in these ones together, when you crossbreed, you'll be able to have the qualities that you have in both parents in that particular offspring. So the correct answer here is option A, crossbreeding. Question 43. Blood grouping in human beings is derived from combinations of what? We have 2 different alleles, we have 4 different alleles, we have 3 different alleles, we have 2 different alleles. Now we have 4 different blood groups. Okay, in humans we have blood group A, we have blood group B, we have blood group AB, we have blood group O. Okay, the 4 of them are actually being controlled by 3 different alleles in humans. Okay, you understand that humans are diploid. Okay, and because of that, only 2 out of the blood group actually can be present in a cell at a time. Only 2 of those can combine together to be present in a cell. So generally, all the 4 blood groups A, B, AB, and O that are present in humans are actually controlled by just 3 alleles that are present there. So the correct answer here is option C, 3 different alleles. Option C is the correct answer. Question number 44. The older fossil-bearing rocks, in contrast to the more recent ones, are more likely to what? To contain what? We have animal rather than plant remains. We have invertebrates rather than birds. We have flowering plants rather than mosses. We have reptiles rather than fishes. When we talk about the older fossil-bearing rocks, okay, we can talk about sedimentary rocks. Fossils are found majorly, commonly in sedimentary rocks. Okay, and over 500 million years ago, it was the vertebrates that first appeared, okay, by analysis that was carried out, and then definitely gradually the birds, and then gradually the invertebrates began to take. Now when invertebrates dies, the bones of the animal or the vertebrate begins to decompose gradually. So once it decomposes, because it needs to decompose on time before it can become fossilized, before it can become a fossil. Okay, so the older fossil-bearing rocks, in contrast to the more recent ones actually contain more of the vertebrates. Okay, but the older one, fossil-bearing rocks, in contrast to the more recent ones, they are more likely to contain what? Invertebrates, more invertebrates. So invertebrates rather than the bird. So animal rather than plant remains no, because we have plants growing on those things more than it. So it is not A. We have invertebrates because we have those the invertebrates, those animals without backbones. First of all, there they live there, and then they die there, and then they have. But the most recent ones now, we have remains of plants and what? Animals that are decayed for years. Okay, so we have more of the what vertebrates now, but the older ones actually had, in the case of evolution, they have the invertebrates, okay, rather than vertebrates, because the birds are actually vertebrates. They have bones in them, so it is like we have more invertebrates than what, than the vertebrates. Okay, so which means that option B is actually the correct answer, invertebrates rather than birds. If you have any question bothering you at all, please feel free to ask your question. You can do that by clicking on the link in the description below that takes you to the Myschool website, where you have opportunity to ask your questions and solutions will be provided within the shortest period of time. Now let's move on to question number 45 now. In a group of male Agama lizards, the one with the brightest head color is the what? Is it the dominant? Is it the youngest? Is it the oldest? Is it the largest? Of course, you agree with me that the Agama lizard actually have their head color, okay, to display in order to what? To attract their female counterparts to them. When you see them nodding their head like that, they're actually saying, I am here, trying to show, create, get the attention of the female counterpart, and then they can come for what? For mating. Okay, so usually the one that has the brightest color of the what? Of the head is actually the one that dominates that list, and then all the female ones are what? Drawing attention to them. So the correct answer is option A, is the dominant. Not the youngest, not the oldest, not the largest, but the dominant is option A. That's the correct answer. Do you have better solutions or better explanations to some of the questions that have been solved before now? Please feel free to share with us. All you need to do is to go to the comment section, and then you'll be able to indicate the question number and then the solutions you will need to share with us. Now, question number 46. Example of waterborne and sex-linked diseases are what? Option A, we have tyniasis and malaria. We talk from tinea, okay? Tyniasis and malaria. Of course, malaria is caused by Plasmodium, vector that is from female anopheles mosquito, okay? So that does not have anything to do with it. So this, of course, nullifies this, okay? Option B says cholera and gonorrhea. Gonorrhea is not a sex-linked disease, okay? Yes, cholera can actually be caused from water, okay? Disease, we can have that cholera from water that is impure, but we can't have this gonorrhea. Gonorrhea is not a sex-linked disease, okay? So this cannot be, okay? When we talk about sex-linked diseases, we talk about hemophilia, okay? We talk about color blindness. We have a whole number of them, okay? But gonorrhea is not, could just be an infection, but it's not a sex-linked what disease. We have typhoid and syphilis. Typhoid can be caused from water that is infected, okay, that is consumed, definitely. But syphilis here it's not a sex-linked disease, okay? The examiner put it there because somebody will feel syphilis could be an infection, it's microorganism infection, okay, but not a sex-linked disease, okay? So we have option D, dracunculiasis. That actually is a guinea worm, infection, okay? It's a parasitic infection that is caused by the guinea worm, okay, usually, and that is gotten when one takes in or consumes water that is infected with water fleas, okay, guinea worm, okay. Definitely, if one gets that, you get this dracunculiasis. That is the disease that is caused. This is a water-borne disease, okay. And then we have the hemophilia that has to do with the blood. I said that earlier on, okay, that this is a sex-linked what disease. So the correct answer here is option D. Question 47. The mutation theory of organic evolution was propounded by what? The mutation theory. Well, actually, if you look at all these options here, all of these scientists actually, at one point or the other, worked on theory of evolution, okay? Those that worked on selective probability, we have like Gregor Mendel, okay, we have Hugo de Vries, we have John Lamarck, and then we have Charles Darwin. This is a very popular name, okay, that has to do with what? The theory of what? Of evolution, okay? They all worked at one point or the other. But the person that actually, propounded the theory of mutation, the mutation, we call it the mutation theory, okay? It's no other person than Hugo de Vries. So this man here was the first scientist to propound a theory on mutation of organic evolution. It was propounded by him. So the correct answer is option B, Hugo de Vries. Question number 48. A certain savanna grasshopper changes color from green during the rainy season to brown during the dry season and black after dry season bushfires. The reason for these color changes is that the what? The grasshopper is getting older. Don't forget, it changes with what? With season. Dry season, rainy season, bushfire. Okay, the color changes. Of course, option B says environmental temperature is changing. No. Grasshopper is getting older. No. Environmental temperature is changing. No. If environmental temperature, the color should not be changing with the seasons. Okay. Option C, grasshopper is avoiding predation. Most probably, let's look at option D. Grasshopper is frequently molting. When you say molting, it's changing its skin. Okay, or we call it what we call ecdysis. Okay, that's not what is happening here. We have grasshopper is avoiding predation. Yes, just like we have chameleon. Yes, chameleon camouflages. Okay, when it's on the tree, it's a kind of special lizard that camouflages. So the same thing happens to this savanna grasshopper, because it knows that once it's rainy season, all the grasses that are in that place, they become green. So the color will change. It will camouflage into that, so that if the predators that wants to come and pick it comes there, it cannot see it because the color is already matching with the environment. The same thing when it is dry season, the leaves, the browns, everything, trees, everything, they are brown. So the color changes again to camouflage, so that the predators will not be able to prey on it and see it on time. Then when there's bushfire, okay, there's fire that's born, there's fire, what happens? Everything turns to brown. So it will also change its color to become black because the bushes are already black. So it will be very difficult for birds, just like the saying, green snake under green grass. So that it will be very difficult for any predator, any prey, predator to actually prey on it. So the correct answer here is option C. Grasshopper is avoiding predation. Option C. Question number 49. Complex social behavior. Take note, complex, not just social behavior. Okay, complex social behavior and organization are found mostly in what? What group of organisms are more sociable when it comes to being social, and then they are so organized? We have option A, insects. Okay, insects, yes, they are referred to as social organisms actually because of the way they move together. But when you talk about complex now, okay, so it's going to fail. It's not going to pass for that. Option B, we have birds. Even birds could be, they could have social behavior, but they are not complex. They don't have complex, social. We have reptiles, organisms or animals that live on land. Okay, yes, they might also have, some social behavior, but type of organization, it is not. They are not complex. They are not really there, compared to the last one that are mammals, where you and I actually fall in. Okay, when you talk about being social, having a complex social behavior, mammals are there. Okay, you can see a monkey carrying the other, the baby around his tummy like that, and then they are together. You see them moving like that's how mammals are actually trained, and that is how they have that complex social behavior. And then when you talk of organizations, they are actually organized. So the correct answer is option D, mammals. Question number 50. Which of the following structural features are adapted for uses other than conservation of water? Water conservation. Option A says succulent stems. Option B, scales in animals. Option C, spines in plants. Option D, feathers in birds. Actually, all of these options are actually correct, but because they all have, they are adapted for features that have to do with what? Water conservation. Okay, but there is a particular one that has more features, adaptation for uses more than just water conservation. Of course, the succulent stems, I would choose that. Of course, this should be the correct answer, because option B, we have scales in animals. Yes, scales in animal can help to keep the water, the animal skin, to conserve water loss. Okay, actually, of course, which is this. But they say other than water conservation uses. Okay, what other ones? It can also help maybe some prey might not be able to feast on their skin easily, yes, but that is just like about 2 function uses. Okay, look at this. Spines in plants. Water conservation can also help, you know, some organisms to make that place habitat for them, but that does not have much function compared to that. So feathers in birds, yes, feathers can help the birds to conserve the water content in them, can also help them, they can use it for flight, yes, that is correct, but that do not actually have more uses. But succulent stems actually have uses. Okay, adaptations that uses that help them, or the adaptations that help them to be useful in some other ways apart from water conservation. Where we talk about thermal capacity, they are able to retain water and then they lose water. They have the loss of water is actually minimal. Okay, which is the major one. Then they also serve as shades. Don't forget, okay, some animal, because they are stems, succulent stems, they have broad leaves around them, so they can serve as shade organism. They can also serve as habitats. Okay, that's another, you know, structural feature, okay, of that particular succulent. They can also serve as, I would say, for water conservation, for color. Okay, they can provide color. When we talk about color, you know, they have some white, you know, green kind of color that helps the sunlight. Okay, the radiation that provides light, that reflects, once sunlight shines on them, they can reflect light, so they can produce light. So the color helps them. We talked about first water conservation, we talked about shade, we talked about habitats for other organisms, we talked about color. So you can see, so it has more functions compared to every other one here. So based on that, the correct answer here is option A, succulent stems. I hope you enjoyed this content. If yes, please don't forget to click on the like button, hit on the subscribe button, and finally tap on the notification bell to keep you notified once we upload our next video.